Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides a friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
And with that, this is our final episode of the first year of the podcast.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So a week from when this comes out, the podcast will be exactly a year old.
Exactly a year old.
Yeah, and because of that, in between episodes, we won't have a bonus episode, but we will have a little sort of celebration thing next week. So when you're listening to this, just be on the lookout next Monday. We have something sort of exciting coming up, and it should be fun.
Exciting plans, something
Yeah,
reflective
yeah,
that
just a cool little video to celebrate our first year of the podcast and 27 episodes so far. That feels great. 27
feels good.
episodes.
27.
And the countdown to episode 30
The
continues.
countdown to episode 30 does continue.
Yes, and
It's
I
creeping
just
ever closer.
it's
and,
there.
and now we're
It's
at the point, because this is episode 27 and we're ending a block. Technically, it's in the next block.
yeah.
Technically.
Isn't that exciting? So today, for episode 27, we are talking about the first volume of the New 52 Flash, Move Forward by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato. I never know how to pronounce his last name. I feel really bad about that.
I think it's either Buccellato or Buccellato or
Yeah.
Buccellato. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, either way, yeah. So they work on this together. They are the co-writers, and Francis Manapul is the artist. Brian Buccellato is the colorist on it. Um, and they're both fantastic. You could tell like in it, it's a collaborative effort. So getting
this
into our
is a team.
getting into our non-spoiler section. What is the Flash Move Forward about?
Interestingly, I interestingly, it's actually a fairly tight story arc. Like, despite not necessarily being structured in a traditional story arc fashion, it is let's basically do a Barry Allen Flash series set in the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
Basically as the start. Interestingly, no real callbacks to like Flashpoint.
Yeah, I think the idea, as far as I can tell, at least, in the like two or three times that I've read this, this is all meant to be like before this version of Barry has his memories collided with Flashpoint Barry's.
Yes,
Yeah,
this also feels early. Like,
yeah, it's meant to be fairly early days Barry. Like I think like New 52 timeline wise, like the Justice League has only just been around for a little bit. Like he says 5 years ago he got his powers. So this is somewhere not quite before not quite directly on where most of the New 52 titles started with the 6 year gap between when the DC universe began.
yeah,
Um so it's not quite completely there yet, and you could see like Barry still figuring out a lot of things for himself.
yeah. And I think that's actually it makes it a really nice introduction to Barry. This is
Hmm.
this is a story arc I'm actually a little conflicted on. Like, I enjoyed it,
Hmm.
but like I was just a little conflicted on my end up wrap up thoughts right at the end, if that makes sense. Just because,
Okay.
like, one, what I do love is that despite being an arc and there's a complete story, it does kind of harken back to like just the idea of let's have everything bleed, each issue bleed one into the other. Uh,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
better and for worse. Sometimes it's done really well, like right at the end. Like,
Hmm.
the last two issues are great, especially, and issue 8, the ending ends on a really fun cliffhanger.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. And interestingly, on like how this works as a complete story and this sort of like this back to basics approach for Barry Allen as a character, this is only the second ever time in comics history that someone has tried to create Barry Allen from the ground up, you know? Because just before this, the only solo Barry Allen comics we had were Flash Rebirth, a bunch of Brightest Day tie-ins, some Road to Flashpoint shit, and Flashpoint itself. This is like one of the only times in recent years at the time when this came out that we were actually like taking Barry Allen back to like his solo comic roots and telling just some original stories with this character.
yes.
So I really do like the approach that Manapul and Buccellato take with this.
And I think it's also really telling that tonally, this feels kind of Silver Age. Like
I get that.
it feels out there. Like our main villain is kind of a just crazy classic B movie sci-fi idea,
Mhm.
with some modern character sensibilities. Now, of course, I obviously haven't read any Silver Age Flash, um, but like it's very much a story that kind of harkens back to an older time in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
as well as Francis Manipul's art. Like,
Which actually I was just about to bring up our first Twitter question. Jamie at Jamie underscore season 7 says, not a question, but DC should get Francis Manipul to draw everything, and I could not agree more.
yeah, like
His art is just so pleasing to look at.
it's
Like
so
I just
distinctive. Like
yeah.
it, and there are bits where it almost feels like a watercolor drawing, and everything just kind of pops off the page.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is also down to Bucalato's coloring. Um,
Oh, definitely. It goes hand in hand with Manipul's art. It's they
yes.
work so well together.
Um, and what's especially interesting is this as a team. Like this is a team that I haven't really heard of. Like
Mhm.
a lot of the other teams that we've covered are names I vaguely heard of going into the podcast or became aware of
When we
fairly
started doing the
quickly.
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like I and it's kind of a shame. Like this pair, they work together so well as a team,
Mhm.
um, and two, they make the Flash pop. Like despite not enjoying this collection as much as Flashpoint, uh, interestingly enough, it's still a really solid start and one that I think you could have a really solid full run with,
Yeah.
depending on where the next few volumes go. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely.
even said to you, Joey, like, I'm kind of sad we aren't doing volume two next time.
Well,
Uh,
thankfully, as we move into our second year of Fresh Base Comics, we're doing a lot of continuations of stuff that we've started to cover within this first year.
yes,
So we will be doing like the next couple volumes sooner rather than later.
yes,
Yeah.
which is good, but also it just makes this all the more interesting. I'd also have to say, so going in, because I've been writing out some expectations going in. I was expecting lower stakes, and you got that
Okay.
to a point. Like, interestingly, they as a team, Manipul and Bucaleto let the stakes rise over the course of 8 issues. Uh,
Oddly enough, I think like this collection with the 8 issues is mostly split into like two bigger halves, and I think like the issues 5 through 8 portion is like less high stakes than 1 through 4.
Interesting. Uh,
I thought at least.
in the way it's presented, yes, but not. I don't think necessarily in the way that the first like but not in the way that it feels like the first 4 issues feel very high stakes, and I think part of that's because it feels very personal,
Mm,
and then the back half is very let's do high concept, um, and but technically lower stakes, um,
okay.
and lower stakes that make Barry question his morality as a hero, which is um, again interesting. It's like let's really establish Barry Allen because he really is kind of a blank slate character, and I'm glad they had the time, they had the chance to actually do this, um, and I'm glad they stayed on for that Flash kept going, and they Manipul and Bucalato stayed on for a fairly large portion of the New 52.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely. But yeah, is that about do it for our non-spoiler section? Should we move into
I
spoilers now?
I think so because
I'm
there's
ready. Yeah.
yeah.
One last Twitter question. A second Twitter question before we get into spoilers. Our friend Mason at the GD256 says, "Bro, why he's so fucking fast?" In a second tweet, Mason follows up, says, "This is all I got. I am so sorry." And I really don't know what to say to either of those.
Well, don't be sorry, Mason. He's fast because he has to keep moving forward.
Yeah,
That's the
as
theme.
is the name of the collection.
Yes. Um, yeah, but overall, before we move into spoilers, I'd recommend this.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely pick this up, but you're probably gonna want to immediately move on to volume two after
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
finishing
It
it.
very much relies on you like wanting to do volume two right after it. Um, but I am denying you that opportunity here.
You are denying me the opportunity.
There was the way I was splitting this up when I was like planning out like how we would be covering this run throughout a couple different blocks. I originally had volume two mixed in with volume one, but it would be a really long episode because this first volume alone is 8 issues.
Yes, and then I'm
So
guessing volume two is at least another like
volume two I think
six.
takes us up to like 14 or 15 issues altogether, and I'm like, I want to keep it a little bit simpler, and this is one of the longer collections of the New 52 Flash run. I think there's only one other volume that has 8 issues in it, so the way I wanted to split this up, we're doing this on its own anyway.
We're doing
So
it on its own,
getting into this,
which is nice.
yeah. But starting up on issue one, first off, the collection that I have, and I believe you have as well, has these really nice variant covers at the back of each one.
Yes,
uh
which
the one for
I'm
this one is
surprised. I'm
yeah.
surprised other collections don't do this.
I mean,
Um,
it depends. If they include variant covers, sometimes they're after each cover. Sometimes they're at the back of the book.
yeah,
But
I
this
know
one
the
has a
Batman ones like to do it right at the back of the book, but it makes a nice also interior, like an interior like title
yeah.
page to
And
the issue.
I do really always like sketched and inked covers though too on the inside.
Yeah,
But yeah, so this one has a variant done by Ivan Reis, which is very nice.
which is very
Just a
nice.
really great cover. Now we open this. We get a quick scene between Barry and new love interest Patty Spivot. Sort of in the same vein that like they split up Clark and Lois and in favor of Clark and Diana in the New 52. This is sort of that same thing, but instead we have just a different love interest altogether rather than pairing Barry up with someone, sort of unconventional rather than Iris. But Iris does still play a significant portion throughout
Yeah.
this.
Well, it doesn't the way Manipul and Bukata play it out. They don't. It feels very different from the way Johns plays the Clark and Diana relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
definitely.
this because this feels like a younger Barry. It feels like he just hasn't really asked Iris out yet and realized his feelings for her.
True. But
Uh,
that being said, throughout this the first volume alone, like I really do like Barry and Patty's relationship.
oh yeah, it's very nicely fleshed out. Like from the first page, they're already very flirty, and it's one of the things
Hmm.
that you really like. Like if I
Hmm.
didn't know Barry would eventually be with Iris, like I would be okay with this.
Hmm.
Um,
And also, just cute little nerdy couple. I don't know. I kind of like that idea for Barry specifically. I just like that. Um, So that's great. Also in the scene we meet Dr. Elias or Elias. How would you say it?
yes,
Yeah,
Elias, yeah,
Elias, whatever the fuck you say. We meet Dr. Elias. He'll become important later on. But they're at this museum, and
yes. They're presenting a project on a theoretical renewable energy source to build a green high-speed monorail, um, which is sounds kind of like a crazy science idea that would never actually work. And I don't know if
um,
that's the angle they're going for, because it gets cut short by a very large onomatopoeia of a crash through the roof.
and
Um,
I love. I mean, we'll talk about it on the next page. But like these like soldiers break through, and Barry gets his ring and makes the Flash costume pop out, and we get this brilliant title page. I love all of the pages like
just
this.
all the title pages for this collection incorporate like the title and logo into the action.
Mhm.
Um, like this first one is, my name is Barry Allen. To the world, I'm the fastest man alive.
And then it does the little, like here's his backstory really quickly, which actually brings us to an odd Twitter question. Jamie at Jamie underscore season 7 says, "What do you feel about each issue having the My Name is Barry Allen narration?" Um,
I
that's
don't
not,
think they do.
yeah, at least in this collection. I don't know if it's different in like other versions or maybe in single issues, but they don't have that in every issue here. It's only in this first one, as far as I can
Yes,
remember.
as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
They do the DC Comics proudly presents The Flash.
Yeah, which
Um,
like for the way that these title pages are set up, like you need that there. Like
yeah,
I think they look really nice.
you would also ruin some of the art if you like
Yeah,
if you
because
tried to
those
cut
things
it.
are like part of the art, and it looks really really nice.
Yes.
But yeah, so Barry now as the Flash takes on these soldier characters. The soldiers begin to escape. They get into like this they get into this plane and they begin to leave. Barry grabs one of the soldiers and like drags him down. And a really cool like sort of move here as they're falling through the sky. Barry I guess like uses his arm and like I don't know like tornadoes this
Vortexes
guy
him into.
into into the building, which I think is fun. He crashes through into the sewer and is met by Iris West. And I don't know, I just like her introduction here. I think it's really well done.
Yes. Um, and I like Iris just sort of as the plucky journalist.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I like the way like Iris, at least in this collection, is characterized sort of as like a character that is at least publicly against the Flash for like some PR points, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. So because she doesn't think like the Flash is evil, but she's very distrusting, which with what the New 52 was kind of going for, with
Mhm.
like like just like Jeff Johns' first arc of Justice League really trying to explore the emergence of superheroes, it kind of
Mhm.
works.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it kind of a lot of this plays out kind of like a Barry's trying to juggle his secret identity almost,
Mhm.
which is some fun story beats that you see, um, and it makes you question, oh, is Patty gonna will Patty find out that Barry's secretly the Flash, uh,
Mhm.
uh, or will everything work?
Yeah. But yeah, so at the end of all this, Barry gets this piece of technology that these soldiers were stealing. He gets it back to Dr. Elias.
Yes, it's a
They
genome recoder. Again, already introducing that we're going to be doing some crazy B movie sci-fi shit just because
mhm.
let's recode genes.
But
Also doing having the Flash do some his own PR basically before he
yeah,
runs
yeah.
away and Barry reappears.
Mhm.
Um, and you have Patty worried about him. He's like, "Oh, I dropped my phone." And you'll see throughout this collection his excuses get more and more insanely
Oh
stupid.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But with Barry, at least, like you feel like he can pull it off because of just how he could be in like pretty much anywhere at once, you know.
yes. And
Yeah. So
speaking of being in anywhere at once, that becomes interesting for this first arc,
yes.
because
So
they have the
uh,
body of someone killed on impact, and it is someone that Barry recognizes.
yeah, a friend of his, at least from when he was a teenager, I believe they go into um a friend named Manuel Lago. I mean, I don't think they say his last name here, but anyway, yeah, Manuel. He is an old friend of Barry's. We get a nice little flashback of the two of them hanging out together, and then we take his body away.
Yes,
Um,
I love the just the little character work of the flashbacks. They go a
oh
long
yeah, I
way.
really like the flashbacks.
Like this first flashback is so short, but you really get this whole idea of Barry being kind of the timid one, whereas Manuel's the more outgoing friend, which is just a lot of
Mhm.
fun. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they take away the body. Um, Iris calls out to Barry, um, trying to be like get a statement about is it true that the Flash had something to do with the suspect's death? Uh, it's like, oh, who told you that, Iris? So it is true. That's huge. And you have a lot of these questions, and I like how forceful Iris is.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
like she's always chasing the story,
Mhm.
even if it's to almost stupid ends to
Yeah.
chase a story, uh,
Mhm.
which will become a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Um,
Then we get our first scene at the crime lab where Barry and Patty work together. We meet director Singh here, who we saw briefly in Flashpoint. But he's playing a bigger role here, of course.
yes.
We see a bit more of him. Um, And then we get into like we get into like just a scene of a page at least of Barry alone as the Flash, and I love the way these pages are laid out, specifically this first one of like him just standing profile on the side here, and all these like smaller panels on the side as he meets with director Singh. It's just a nice little scene here, but he begins looking into Manuel's death. Then
And I actually think I prefer this second page just because it really shows just sort of how he's all Barry as a person is always going, just
oh
just
yeah, and
always,
how just chaotic his life is, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Um,
kind of perfect for a superhero with super speed.
mhm.
Um, uh, and what's especially interesting is that he kind of gets wrapped up in the case only for someone to sneak into his apartment,
Mhm.
and it's
Specifically, this
Manuel.
is yeah, Manuel. And Manuel it says he doesn't have time to explain, and he just runs out of Barry's apartment. Barry chases after him. He takes him all the way to the other side of town. It seems, as oh yeah, Manuel is being chased by these two guys, and Barry pretends to like jump into the water. He comes back out as Flash, and Flash catches up with Manuel, and Manuel is surrounded by about what a dozen other Manuels.
A dozen other Manuels. Now,
Yes.
this is the B movie sci-fi shit I was talking about.
Hmm.
My
It's
notes
very
here was
fun.
like, we're doing a clone plot.
Yes.
And what's especially interesting is that this first issue kind of threw me for a loop because I was kind of expecting almost a setup like the Flash TV show, um,
Okay.
which I'm kind of glad that it's not like the Flash TV show. Um,
Interesting.
Mainly because I think the Flash TV show works for a television show because you know, performed medium
Hmm. Oh,
can't.
so were you saying like you thought it might be more a bit more like Villain of the Week, maybe?
Villain of the week, more set. I was expecting more of a setup with Barry having maybe his own base of operations.
Okay. See, that's the
Like,
thing though that people always complain about the Flash TV show is that he has like a whole team. Like Barry is pretty much a solitary figure most of the time.
yeah, yeah, and I think I like that more, honestly.
I mean,
Like,
there is obviously the whole Flash family eventually. We don't have any of that here really.
no.
But we have like multiple speedsters that we meet throughout like the course of Flash comics. None of them are really present here. This is meant to be a solo Flash adventure, at least throughout
Yes, I
these
mean it's
long.
it's also meant to be like an early Flash adventure, clearly. Um,
Mhm.
it's also kind of a shame that after this Manuel hasn't been used since. Like,
Yeah, yeah. At least like in flashbacks to like show that like they did have a very close relationship.
yeah, well, it,
But
it also just
yeah,
doesn't. We'll see what happens when we get to it. But like,
yeah,
this is a story that for him it feels almost unresolved in the end. Um,
I get that. But moving into issue 2 now, we have a variant cover done by Greg Capullo here, which is so nice.
I love the literal like running on a compass.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
or no, it's a speedometer. It's like fast, super fast, OMG, and lightning bolt.
yeah.
Um, which
um,
okay, for something by Greg Capullo, my brain thinks, oh, are you gonna try to make it dark and gothic because he wrote
no,
Batman?
no, no, it's a little cheesy and it's
It's
great.
it's great, yeah. But we open with Barry as the Flash taking on a bunch of Manuels. Um, and
I'm gonna love
again,
saying that because I don't know why. Like I read these comics just fine before, and now for some reason, whenever we say Manuel out loud, I'm thinking of Manuel from Faulty Towers. I don't know why. For some reason, when we're saying this out loud, I'm like, oh, he's taking on a bunch of Manuels. Yep, that makes sense.
that makes sense. Um, this Manuel's a bit more effective than Manuel from Faulty Towers. Uh,
Manuel from Faulty Towers is a king. We love him.
and I love, and I kind of touched on this in the first issue. I love the paneling. Just
Oh yeah, yeah.
like
Like it's not just the art; it's the layout too.
yeah, like the layout itself. this interesting tendency to do horizontals, but have them do fully across the page, which like we've seen before, but never to this extent and the
Yeah,
specific
it
way.
goes really far in this. Yeah.
And I think for a Flash comic that works because and it enforces the idea that Barry just wants to keep moving forward with everything, which is kind of the main theme of this set. That's of this volume.
Hmm.
It's why it's called Move Forward.
Hmm. And
Because
visual and like the fact that they can get that across visually as well as within the storytelling, I really like that. I know we compliment Jeff Johns a lot for this, and this is a bit more like dialogue heavy than Jeff Johns, but like it really does know how to tell that story visually as well.
yes, it does, and I think the dialogue here is also really good at doing internal conflicts. Um,
Yeah.
because throughout this, we may as well talk about the big internal conflict because the bunch of Manuels try to steal this gene recoder and are basically being set up as our villain. One, you never know exactly where you stand because there are a bunch of clones. But Barry has to grapple with the fact that he's facing an old friend. Um,
Hmm.
and props to Manipul and Bucaletto for inventing a character who is an old friend and making you feel like he's an old friend immediately.
Yeah, while
Um,
immediately setting at least the other Manuels that aren't the original Manuel, setting them up as the villains of this story.
Part of me honestly wonders if pre New 52, they were set to like take over the Flash from Jeff Johns and just adapted this for
And they
that.
already had like these ideas in place. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
possible.
Um, because it feels like this was thought out beforehand just a little
Hmm.
bit like
Yeah, yeah,
um which again is interesting.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
we
yeah, so Barry leaves. He goes to talk with Iris very briefly, and and then he goes to see Dr. Elias, who has a treadmill, not a cosmic one, because the
I
second Barry runs on it, it breaks down pretty
it breaks
much.
down. My note for this had cosmic treadmill, but not,
Yes,
but not
almost cosmic treadmill.
almost cosmic treadmill.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
And again, Dr. Elias is also a new character.
Mhm.
Um,
And I love what he adds to this. This scene in particular is saying that like Barry the Flash is a fast character. He can act fast, but he's not thinking fast. His mental capacity isn't matching his physical capacity.
it's also so this was also before the Flash TV show was even a thing, like clearly. Because
Mhm.
this was what 2011, and that show didn't premiere till
2014.
2014. Yeah,
Yep.
14. Um, but I love this relationship. It reinforces the idea that this is a young Barry, that he's asking others for help while maintaining his secret identity. Um, he's very much going
El-
like
El-
I
Elias is Elias isn't a character that knows Barry's identity or anything.
know.
Yeah.
And he, if he discovers it, it isn't in this volume. Um,
Mhm.
um,
But yeah, so then so Barry leaves to go out with Iris for a bit, and he begins to think fast. He begins to unlock that part of his brain that can that can tap into the Speed Force the same way his physical body can.
yes,
And I love the way these
which
pages are laid out.
yeah, which it becomes interesting. So he's on the roof of I'm guessing Central City Police Department, uh,
Probably.
probably because Patty's there, and it's like why we 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 don't get as many establishing shots of location because a lot of this is moving very quickly. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, but we have Barry talking to himself, Patty showing up.
We have like Patty's like speech bubbles even being cut off by what Barry is seeing
Yes,
because he's quickly observing the world around him.
as he sort of just realizes what he can do, the idea of being able to think fast and observe and almost tap into precognition is what we're building to.
Hmm.
Uh,
And possible futures, pretty much.
Yes.
So the idea is that like this is an early Barry. He hasn't quite learned how to time travel yet. So this is almost like an early development of that idea that like
Yes.
he's time traveling to potential futures before they even happen.
Yeah, but and he's only seeing them. He's not physically going there, and he gets to decide, which I think is interesting because if one, it follows the idea that if we develop time travel, we'd be able to develop time travel into the future before we would develop time travel into the past.
Mhm.
Just because the future is yet to happen, but
Yeah,
the past is the past.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, and I love again the layouts. We get a lot of really small boxes just to represent it, all basically spiraling out from Barry's head,
yeah.
while the actual backgrounds become this like almost purple, this purple monochrome. Um,
Yeah, and
like
like almost like sketched out in the same way that like Jim Lee drew like the Hush flashbacks, you know?
yeah,
They're drawn like
um,
that, and like so this is a very like they're sort of abstract even, I would say.
yeah, and it does a really good job of showing the consequences, but only showing just enough so the reader can understand the sequence of events of here's why Barry chooses this because he say he sees like a crane that gets it's gonna get trapped to a car and hurt a kid um, while a pile of apples is going to fall. So he saves it
Mhm.
all, and you really only see it in like the see how he saves it in these just quick glances.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then when you
You see it in the way that he does it, like when he's thinking about it. Before you only see of it when they actually show him doing it. They
yeah,
don't show him actually part of that action.
and by the time you get back to like regular paced action, it's just this
Mhm.
quick juxtaposition in a excusing the pun in a flash of suddenly he has an apple that he's eating now
Yeah,
which
yeah, and it's
is
so great. Like it really is just smart visual storytelling, and I love it. Um,
and there's just a lot of character too in the way
mhm.
Barry's drawn. he's
Oh,
he's
definitely. Yeah,
like he's not dumb, but he kind of has that like himbo energy of he's just trying to get along in the world.
yeah.
Um,
But
and
yeah,
his solo act,
so
which I
so
liked.
Barry leaves. Then we get another flashback. This time a flashback of how Barry and Manuel first met. Um, again nice little scene. Like I really do love these flashbacks. They're really well done.
Yeah. Um, the idea is that Barry was invited to a party, but kind of is a wallflower, so he left the party. Manuel found him. Manuel wasn't invited to the party, but uses Barry as sort of a scapegoat to get in, and it's really nice.
Mhm.
Um, and we learn that Manuel was a part of the CIA at this point. And, and
Mhm.
and Barry's on basically on the trail. Um, and the whole idea is that Manuel eventually tried to run away. Um, all in a flashback, we see him deployed somewhere. He called Barry at a payphone. Uh,
He's missing a hand here.
yes,
It's like wrapped up, and then he gets taken away, and Barry doesn't know where he went. Um,
and in the present, we see the bunch of Manuels with Manuel tied to a chair.
mhm.
Um, and all the or no, yeah, with Manuel tied to a chair, and they're working with a Dr. Guerrero to find a solution to their problem that all of these clones are dying. And that's all we get of that for now.
Mhm.
Um, but we also
Uh,
we should have mentioned Iris told Barry that she was going to interview the most dangerous inmate of Iron Heights prison, uh,
yes,
which is very interesting. So we get one panel of Iris going to Iron Heights, Patty at the police lab, um, having discovered some declassified documents on a cloning project.
Yes.
Dr. Elias looking over some brain scans. Um, and on, I'm guessing this is the bridge between Central and Keystone cities.
Yeah. Yep. The
Um,
Gem City Bridge. Yep.
Suddenly, a button is pushed.
There's
All
a
the
big
power
flash
goes out.
of green light. The all power goes out between Central City and Keystone City, and a plane starts to fall out of the sky, and that is the end of the issue. Bring us into issue 3. Great cover, great variant cover by Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Alex Sinclair, because of course it is. It just looks really nice. Going
And
into
it
issue,
was at this point where my mind was kind of going for a loop, just like, oh, because with every issue, what Manapul and Bigletto pull off is a difficult thing to pull off. Is that at the end of every issue, we're going into a completely different direction. Like,
Mhm.
and it's not
while
so much
still
as
keeping the
a
same narrative through line.
yeah, it's not so much as a twist, but it's a another wrench gets thrown into the situation.
Yeah.
Like my note at the end of issue 2 is how deep does this conspiracy go? Like we're dealing with
Yeah.
some CIA stuff. Yeah, at this point I'm thinking, is Iris going to Iron Heights going to play a role? And it does
Mhm.
eventually. Takes a
Yeah.
while to get there,
Leading into like
really.
mostly the second half of the book.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah. We had a
uh,
great title page to start off issue 3. I love the flash within the plane crashing. Like, that looks so cool. This
in
story called
Lights
Lights Out.
Out.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, Once again using his fast abilities,
yes. Then
to say
we get some Barry narration here. One, I
Mhm.
love the idea that Barry does not drink coffee because that would
Yeah.
only make him more jittery and
Yeah.
worse. Um, but it also really captures just this nervousness of holy shit, there's a plane crashing. A lot of people are just stuck on this bridge because it's an EMP. The whole idea is basically the cars are going to still be going just until they lose momentum. Any car
Mhm.
that's still going. Um, and again we have the great sort of just horizontal layouts. Um,
Yeah. As Barry saves this plane from collapsing, and
by
literally
vibrating
sends
his
it.
molecules into the plane.
Yeah, and sending the plane through the bridge so it doesn't crash into it and safely into the water, which is such a cool sequence and such a cool idea and use of Barry's powers.
Yes, really sold by the narration.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one where the narration is just it's really important. I love that we see Barry struggle. Like this isn't easy for him, and that's continually reinforced. Like there's an uncertainty that he's just trying to do the right thing, um,
Hmm.
which I really like. Because one, it feels very much in line with Flashpoint being the other big comic that I've read, and just making you feel like Barry's unique because pretty much every other character we've read who's headlined a book outside of Cyborg, um, really hasn't had this sort of internal conflict, or at least if they have, it hasn't been in this way.
Yeah, I get
Um,
that.
like, it's been there in the team books we've read, but that's because that's team dynamics. But this is someone on their own trying to do the right thing and not entirely being sure of how to do the right thing, or what that right thing really could be.
Hmm.
Um,
Meanwhile, we see the Manuels infighting again. We see some. We get another flashback, just delving into more like how the Manuel clones came to be. Then we go over to Iron Heights Prison. Iris begins her interview with the most dangerous man at Iron Heights, and this person is Leonard Snart, Captain Cold. Now, I'm curious what you knew about Captain Cold going in, actually.
so I knew he was, most famous for having a cold gun. So it kind of threw me for a loop here when
Yeah, this is one of those New 52 things where they like change the character's powers to make it like new and innovative and shit, you know?
yes.
Um,
Well, they explain why that happens though in this book,
Mhm.
which
Oh
I think
yeah.
is actually a good explanation. It's a better changing of a character with freeze-based power, with cold-based powers than
Yo, definitely.
another character.
Then yeah. Oh god, that fucking annual. Um, but yeah, I know. I really do like Snart's characterization here. We'll see him a lot more later, and I really
Yeah.
do love what this book does with
Um,
him.
in,
But
in the in these scenes early on, I was a little worried that they might try to make him almost like Hannibal Lecter in
okay,
characterization,
I kind of get that. Yeah.
mainly because you have a strong female character coming to visit a dangerous criminal in prison. With that premise, people generally go to Hannibal Lecter. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm glad they don't. I'll give more thoughts on him later when he becomes more prominent. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Manifold and
Definitely.
Glider take him in a really fun way.
Yeah.
Also,
Um.
Barry is just
First off,
collapsed on the
oh yeah.
plane.
First off, Barry has to catch his breath, which is just shows how much like energy that took out of him. Then he leaves the plane, and this kid like tries to get an autograph, and Flash signs the autograph before he leaves. I
Yeah,
think it's a cool,
I
cool
love.
moment.
There's something about the expressions just throughout this page that I love, and throughout the book. They're almost cartoony in places, but because of the style and because it's kind of style, it's very much Maniple's stylization. Like
Hmm.
it works. It doesn't like break immersion. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and partially because they don't call attention to it being cartoony,
Yeah.
um, which would just break immersion.
Yeah.
Um, and we see this nice montage again, using horizontal space really well to show Barry trying to save people while we get an explanation of there was basically an electromagnetic an EMP. It knocked out every electronic device in a 20-mile radius. Like he's saving people from tigers escaping the zoo, people who were in need of an ambulance, people stuck in a construction elevator that would just at that point crash to the bottom.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really nice and really quick. Like this volume felt longer than it was, but in a good way. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I get
there's a
that.
lot packed into these issues.
Yeah.
Um,
We get a little scene between Forrest and Patty here. We haven't talked much about Forrest. He was another character that showed up briefly in
yeah,
Flashpoint.
very, very briefly.
Um,
I don't think I have any real opinions on him because
mhm.
he's
he just
there.
he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
But
He seems
yeah,
like a supporting character who could have more focus
mhm,
if this wasn't also reestablishing the Flash from issue 1 and needing to establish who Barry is, what makes him tick, his relationship with everyone, and it's not this character's story. It could, but future issues very well could be his story.
yeah.
Um,
We then catch over to go over to Dr. Elias. We get a nice little like journal entry from him here. Um, and he
yeah,
meets up with the Manuel soldiers here.
yeah. Um, well, and just a bunch of people because he's looking for the origin of the EMP because
Hmm.
EMPs don't just happen. That's where a lot of the mystery of these next couple issues is going to be: is why did this EMP happen? Uh, and he also meets up with this blonde guy who I don't know if he gets a name.
I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be someone, but honestly, I cannot remember who.
Yeah. Um, but he's here for like just the page.
Hmm.
Because he sells they call him Axel, but I it's I don't know any character also called Axel.
I,
Uh
it escapes me at the moment. I'm pretty sure he's meant to be someone, but I can't remember who if he is. But
we'll
anyway,
see that eventually.
yeah.
Probably.
Meanwhile, the Central City Police Department is being briefed on what they need to do during this blackout to help everyone. Barry and Patty get sent out on horses, which is just a cool image. I like
Yes.
that.
Barry
uh,
cannot ride a horse to save his life, which is
which is kind of funny because funny Running Man powers.
Running
But
Man
they go over.
powers.
They Patty got a lead on how to find Manuel, and they do find Manuel with both of his hands chopped off and
And
wrapped in
bandaged.
bandages. Um,
And
and
and he's just kind of cracking really morbid jokes
mhm.
about the
And again,
fact that his
like Manuel is a
hands.
really great character. Like he really has a personality here, and it still shines through in these moments.
Yes. Um, which I really like, because this is also, we're getting close to the point where we're actually going to get an explanation for um, his uh, his regenerative powers, and sort of how it all happens. But
Mhm.
as they try to run
Uh,
away,
in a great sort of play on all the Barry thinking faster scenes earlier, he's thinking so fast in the moment and so far ahead that he gets shot in the face.
which I it's a nice twist on it.
Mhm.
One, it's a good way just to show struggle, and it leads to an amazing cover for issue 4. Um,
Oh God, yeah.
uh, but yeah, and Patty is convinced Barry's gonna dead because she heard the gunshot, because that's where the issue ended, just him being shot in the face. Um, and I love the way the clones are portrayed, because this is the first time we actually sort of get to see how their thought processes work.
Mhm.
That while they are copies of Manuel, and they
They
have
don't
all
they
of
don't
his,
really see themselves as Manuel.
yeah, well, because well, they have they the idea being is they have all of Manuel's memories up to the point that they are created, and then their experiences become their experiences, even if they're similar experiences.
Yeah,
um, and that sort of creates their own identity, um,
which is such a cool
which,
idea. Like I
yeah,
really love that.
again, it's why I wish as a character, so they're called Mob Rule, which is a great villain name.
Oh
I think
yeah,
the Flash has some great corny villain names
the
for
Flash
the,
has like just in general. You'll see like as we continue to read Flash comics, it just has a great rogues gallery in general. Like and always like kills it with the names, like because most of them come from the Silver Age, and most of them have stood the test of time and stuck around to this day. Um, and
so,
they're great. Like
so you're saying the Flash movie should include the Rogues when it comes out,
yes,
and not just.
I'm saying the Flash movie should just stop being fucking Flashpoint, and tell some Flash stories. But anyway, on to issue 4. Easily my favorite cover of the collection. I really, really love this one.
And that's a let's be honest, that's a hard feat. All the covers, both the Manifold Buccellotto covers and all the variant covers,
Hmm.
are are all great. Like,
Oh yeah, they're
it's,
brilliant.
you
Like
know, you've
just
got some good covers when the Jim Lee cover probably isn't even in like the top half of
for real.
the
Like for
covers.
real. Oh my God, yeah. And like and especially in a book where like the art is one of the biggest highlights of it. To
Yeah,
say that
like,
something is the best of any of it, I
because
think
like
that's
the
a
plot,
feat in and of
honestly, the
itself.
plot kind of meanders at points. It
Hmm.
there are bits that could have been tightened up. We have covered 3 issues, and some of this could have been tightened and paced a little better.
Yeah,
But the
we're
art is
definitely
just,
about to see that. We're definitely about to see that in issue 4 here.
yeah. Um, but the art just sells it, like, and it's part of the reason why comics, the artist is equally as important as the writer. Now, the
Mhm.
artists are also the writers here, but still,
Yeah.
like, they work together as a team very nicely.
Hmm.
Uh, and we open with a funeral,
A flashback funeral.
a flashback funeral, all done in this bluish gray to symbolize the winter and the cold, um, for Manuel's father, who is dead. And Manuel looks on. Barry goes to meet him after the funeral, and there's this touching scene where you understand why Manuel would join the army, then the CIA, and allow what happened to him. to happen because he's kind of a character who suffered loss and never really recovered from the loss of his father.
Yeah.
And he keeps running away from his problems. Um, obviously that's an intentional parallel to Barry being a speedster just in general. Um, and throughout this, Manifold and Gillette have kind of been hinting at Barry running away from trusting Patty with his secret identity, but in very subtle ways, mainly because
Yeah.
there's this repetition of Patty of Barry and the reader seeing Patty emotionally suffer because she keeps thinking Barry is dead, um,
Hmm.
when Barry's not dead. Um, but yeah,
We oh, go
and that's
ahead.
just one aspect that I love. But we
Yeah.
move to Dr.
Dr.
Elias being
Elias
captured.
by the
Um,
Manuel clones. This leads us pretty conveniently into first off an amazing title page. I mean, they're all amazing title pages. You know, they're great. I mean, again, we haven't commented on that enough. I feel because the title, like, to make a really like impressive title page that still hits in a collected edition when the title pages don't really matter as much. You
yeah,
know.
I mean,
Um,
we talked about how last time how in Flashpoint, in the trade edition of Flashpoint, they cut the titles from the title page.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and they're just big splashes of art. Here, like the title pages are part of the story, and I love that. So great title page. We delve into more Manuel's backstory here, and
uh,
more of how he got involved with Mob Rule and all that.
how he became Mob Rule, and what I love one. Um, it's like, he was a covert U.S. operative who was given regenerative abilities as part of a top secret government project. He was already a highly trained badass, but the power to regenerate after any wound made him the very best. Just point him in the right direction and watch him work. James Bond meets Batman. Um,
So good. Um,
there, there, and I love this premise for a villain. Like,
mhm.
and we're gonna get some of the dynamics in this issue and the next issue, which are like the best aspects of those issues, of just the way that Manuel works and what makes him tick. Like,
Mhm.
um, like, and he was on a vengeance quest, and even with this title page, the very next page continues just this non-traditional layout.
Yeah,
Um,
it's these like handprints that you see bits of the flashback through, the handprints at the bottom, the footprints in the middle. Like it's really effective, and I really really like it. Even on even the page after that, it's a tree branching out, and through the branches you see bits of that flashback, and below it is the present day stuff of Elias driving with the Manuel clones.
yeah, it's again, it's all this non-traditional
Mhm.
sequential art.
And stuff that really shows you like why like a team that is both writer and artist can really make their comic work to their advantage when they're not focusing on like two separate sides of the story and when it's all one project, you know.
Yeah, which I think it makes this team just the perfect team.
Yeah.
And I
But
and I
we learn
hope
about oh sorry, go
I
ahead.
hope because I know they've worked together on other stuff. Like,
Hmm.
I I hope that style and this non-traditional layout just isn't a one-off.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but
Well,
we
I
this
mean,
is
from their New 52 Flash stuff that I've continued to read after this, I mean, it stays there at least. So,
that's good.
um,
But
yeah.
yeah, so
But we learn here that the Manuel clones, at least at first, and still sort of do, have a shortened lifespan. They just
we
sort of start
we
to die
and we
off.
also we learn that all the majority of the clones have come from the fact that Manuel got captured and he was tortured by having his fingers cut off, then his hands. But because he had regenerative powers, this is the first time he actually started to have clones. Because and you see like the birth of one of the clones on just this pile of severed limbs.
Yeah.
Um, like, because he keeps regenerating his limbs, but then the limbs keep regenerating themselves, and it is just a terrifying image.
Uh,
Um,
oh God, yeah. But it's oh, it's so good, so good. Um, but yeah, like I said, like shortened lifespan we learn about. They're telling Elias their whole story here.
And
Um,
Manuel, like the progenitor of the mad scientist trope, ran away from his creation at the first sign of trouble, just like Dr. Frankenstein.
yeah.
Um,
Meanwhile, over on the Gem City Bridge, Manuel is working with Patty to sort of like calm everything down. They both sort of accepted that Barry is gone at this point. They both think he's dead.
and what's
Um,
especially interesting is Barry. This is issue 4 of the brand new Flash title.
And he doesn't show up until the very end of this issue.
Yeah, and what's
Like,
interesting is I didn't notice that.
yeah,
Like,
you don't notice it until we're on like the last 4 pages, and I've only just seen Barry and how he got out of that like, cliffhanger. You know?
and
um,
I think that's
yeah.
just a testament to the storytelling.
Yeah. Oh,
And
definitely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That I really care about characters like Manuel and Patty. That I'm really interested in seeing what they're going through.
yes. Also,
But
Patty's
yeah, so
allowed
they're
to be
here.
intelligent and a scientist, so that's a
Yes,
plus.
yeah. Patty's just like I don't know. I love her. She's such a great character. Like if Iris wasn't the traditional love interest, I really do think that like she could stay as Barry's main love interest. But
Yeah,
whatever.
and even if she wasn't
Um,
the love interest, just keep her as a close friend.
yeah, just have her around. It's like one of the only things that I actually do kind of like about New 52 Superman is that like Lois is still a character outside of being Clark's girlfriend.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, that's
yeah.
also just a mischaracterization of Lois Lane if you just reduce her to Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane.
Yeah, exactly. But
Um, but yeah,
anyway,
we do get a quick reminder of remember Iris is in Iron Heights. I'm trying my hardest not to say Iris is in Iris Heights.
Iron is in Iris Heights.
Yes.
But yeah, she's there. She's been trapped by Captain Cold, who has escaped. She's trapped behind this door that's been frozen shut and all that.
She breaks
Meanwhile,
out herself because she's not a damsel, which is nice.
yep. And Manuel takes on his clone army for a little bit before
Mainly
he's
because
beat.
Patty's spurred him on, which is again interesting character development for a character who after this really hasn't been seen. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and he's I'm going to kill all of you. And we see one of the panels turn physically to the side, and we see a 3D
Oh
like
yeah, it's so cool. And then as these soldiers like hit like force Manuel onto the ground, he sees crying, and his tears form the next set of flashbacks. Like I love that. It's so cool.
where the
Um,
world thinks he's dead, and he went to bury um, who couldn't
Barry,
believe that he's alive.
who recently had a lab accident, freak lightning, chemicals, and all that. Gee, I wonder what could have happened. And it's great. We see some of his clones waiting outside for him, which I don't know. I just like that little touch.
Um,
Um,
and again, what's interesting, the clone dialogue is interesting because one says, "Oh God, if I have to sit here any longer with all this bromance, I'm gonna." A little respect. Alan's like a brother. His maybe, but not ours. Um, kind of because again, this so we've established there's a psychic link between the clones and Manuel, but they're splinters and just bits of individuality. They're not interchangeable.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And not all of them just disregard Barry because they don't have that personal connection with him. Like some of them are like, oh yeah, well this means a lot to Manuel. Okay, what does it mean a lot to me? Like there is still conflict there.
yes, and I wish we could have explored it more, or just had more opportunities to explore it. Because again, after this, Mob Rule apparently doesn't show up ever again. Um,
Yeah. But anyway, we then catch up with Barry, and we see how Barry got out of it, and of course, the bullet only grazed his skull or something, and it's like, okay,
well,
sure.
I think the idea is that also is because of his super speed, he has super healing.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. It just it's mostly just a reframing though of the issue 3 cliffhanger. So
Yeah, which
so he gets
it
out of
doesn't
that.
quite work.
Yeah.
But
He sees that a bomb was left in there with him, and he runs out of there before it explodes and puts the costume on. And great final
another
pages.
amazing single page of him.
Yeah. And as he leaves to go into the final issue of this first proper arc, I realize now that I mixed up the split of the two arcs. It's 1 through 5 and 6 through 8. Anyway, going into issue
I will say
five,
I think issue 5 might be my least favorite issue.
I agree with that.
This is one where it almost feels cut short.
It does kind of rush an ending to a really great first arc, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, just the pacing feels so different from the last 4 issues. Like it feels like they were going along at a right. We'll just do this first arc, 6 issues that makes a trade,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're told you got to do a second arc within your first 8 issues, and we'll make the 8 issues a trade. Because it just feels weird.
Yeah. Also, interestingly, the variant cover for issue 5 is done by Gary Frank, and I think this is your first ever Gary Frank art, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't know
he,
if I
he
recognize
he's
that name.
he's a big Jeff Johns collaborator.
Ah,
He did Superman Brainiac with Johns and Batman Earth One. Those would be the big ones.
ah,
So
okay.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, yeah, so we open up here. The Manuel clones have taken Elias to sort of the secret base.
yeah, where
Um,
he has a generator, um, basically so he can keep his the idea being in the case of an accident, just like an EMP blast, he can still keep his projects running and the emergency power that he needs, um, which feels almost like a red herring, like I was just thinking, is Elias going to turn out to be evil? Um,
mm,
and he still could, hypothetically, in future volumes, but as of now, like it feels very red herring ish.
mm.
Uh, but yeah, we also see a bunch of rogues are breaking out of Iron Heights. Uh,
Yes.
Iris is captured by some of them. Um I don't recognize any of these characters. Uh,
You should recognize Girder. I think he was in an episode of Superman the Animated Series.
was he?
He made a pretty brief appearance, I believe. Yeah.
Hmm.
Was it in the I know he was in there. Was he in the Legion of Superheroes episode or no? I can't remember what he was in,
Maybe.
but I know he was in an episode because I remember seeing him in a Bruce Timm style, and I'm pretty sure it's in an S-TAS episode. But anyway, we go over to the Gem City Bridge. We see what Patty is up to in the middle of all this, and through it all, the Flash breaks through it. Breaks through it all. He comes in. We get another great title page. Of him like breaking through all through like the ice and snow here, and rain. It's cool. I like it. Um,
And the idea is that he's bringing in reinforcements from the National Guard. Um, and yeah, and all the ice that he breaks as he runs is what forms the title for the DC Comics proudly presents the Flash. Uh, and what's interesting is that this is sort of our first framing, I think, of the idea that the Flash to turn public perception towards him. Because at this point,
mhm.
public perception had been mixed, to say the least. That's kind of what Iris has represented. Um, Barry realizes the ice is coming from Iron Heights. Uh, so he runs to save Iris, who is holding her own with like a metal grate as a weapon.
Yeah, because of course she is, because she's Iris fucking West.
She's
Um,
Iris West. Especially since she really hasn't had a whole lot of focus thus far.
mhm.
She will in the last 3 issues get some more
Yeah,
focus.
yeah, definitely.
Um,
But yeah, Barry saves Iris here, and then Barry says, offers her, or I mean, well, she asks for a ride out of there. Um, we see what the Manuel clones and Elias are up to as Barry comes in to stop them. Um, he's surrounded by the Manuel clones. Another great like two-pager here of the horizontal panels. Just looks really nice.
Yeah.
Which continues
The
on the
whole
page
idea is
after
that they're going to
that.
use the genetic recoder on the original Manuel to basically try and, fix the genetic flaw that's causing all of these clones to die. Um, and Elias is trying, but the idea is that the explosion, like that it might lead to an explosion, so that's why Barry comes and fights. Um, he comes, he grabs the original Manuel. Dr. Elias pleads that it's working. It's like, just give them a chance to live. Manuel tries to hold on, and it starts to go awry. A
Barry starts
containment
to
seal
create this
breaks.
vortex to sort of contain the blast that Manuel is about to create. Um, he does so. It controls the blast. It keeps it all there. All
He
the Manuel
thinks he's
clones.
just getting it into the atmosphere,
Mhm.
and it's silent for a moment. Manuel wakes up and notices all the clones are dead
Mhm.
and obviously feels the pain. Basically tries to knocks the Flash to the ground, tries to beat up Elias. Uh, and uh, the scene doesn't have an ending.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
where we catch up with Manuel later. Like the idea is that he leaves.
he leaves,
Um,
but it doesn't feel like the scene has ended. There,
yeah,
there
I get
isn't
that.
there isn't really a resolution.
Hmm.
Because then we immediately cut to the warehouse district, uh, where Patty still thinks Barry is dead. Uh, like they find the explosion, they find some skulls in the explosion, and then Barry just shows up behind her. Um,
Hmm.
and she goes to hug him, and it's sweet. Then we cut to
Manuel, who has been, it seems, cutting off fingers to create a new mob rule.
this is the
And
last time he's ever seen ever in anything. Just a reminder, like
just
this
yeah,
this feels like setup for something that like
yeah. Anyway, yeah. We then Flash goes to talk to Dr. Elias again, and Elias has come to the conclusion that whenever Barry runs ridiculously fast, he is creating every time he taps into the Speed Force too much, he is creating time rifts and wormholes and things that are actively damaging the universe and could destroy it one day.
it comes to that we have to destroy the Speed Force.
Yeah.
And in this reveal is also the EMP was Barry containing that green explosion
Mhm.
and accidentally sending it back to the past.
Which is a
Um,
really cool idea.
Again, raising the stakes for the next three issues to be a stake of the timeline might be broken.
Hmm.
Um, which is, again, interesting for basically the first Flash arc of the new universe that we might have to destroy the timeline again.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which obviously they're not going to go through with, but I mean, just fun little idea there.
yes.
So we
So
go
we,
into issue 6. Great Captain Cold cover here. I really love that.
I've
Uh,
also really loved the variant, like
yeah, by Mike
the
Choi. Yeah.
the frozen berry.
Hmm.
Yeah. And this one, again, issue 6, we are
We're opening in the middle
shifting
of the
gears
action, actually.
completely.
Yeah. We're opening in the middle of the action. Barry's in the middle of a fight with Captain Cold, who they sort of start to delve into more now that he has actual powers and instead of like just a freeze gun a la Mr. Freeze.
Yeah,
Um,
I also like the idea that he never did murder with his freeze guns,
mhm,
but now he just has freeze powers with his hands.
mhm.
It's like this isn't the Captain Cold I know, um,
And
and
of course, leading us into another fantastic title page for Best Served Cold,
Cold.
which is
Uh,
fun.
Yeah,
Um,
what's also what I think is also great is just the bantery hero villain dialogue here. Like
oh yeah, yeah, it's
it's
fun.
very Silver Age in the best way.
Yeah.
Uh, like it's
Um,
so quippy. But we then cut back to yesterday, where
and it's more Barry and Patty being a cute nerd couple, and I love it.
yes, they're on a plane, and I love how you flip the page to the yesterday, and it's Barry with a cold gun in his face, someone shouting "zap zap," and it's just a child
Yeah.
with like a toy.
Hmm.
Um, while Patty is laying in Barry's lap, which is adorable. Um, and they're kind of crossing each other's wires. Um, and this is, I think, the first time Barry acknowledges her as his girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
and
putting the label on it.
yeah, and they both sort of accept that, and it's a nice little scene.
Yes.
Then we flash back even further to last night, um, and we see, or no, sorry, not even. Oh, sorry, it's I see what it means when it says last night. It means just later in that day.
Yeah,
Um,
later in that day,
yeah, I fucked that up.
because they get back to Central City, um, and this whole idea is that Barry has put in a detector to detect when he's going fast, which Dr. Elias is going to modify to try to avoid the idea of tearing the space-time continuum and creating a wormhole.
Mhm.
With a warning, with a percentage of a danger zone. Um,
Mhm. And then Elias shows Barry what he's been working on, and we have the actual cosmic treadmill here now, and that's nice to see, to actually like have here now. But the idea is that it's going to whenever he needs to like sort of siphon off some extra speed force energy when he's getting too close to the danger zone, he just come here, work that off, and get back out there. So yes,
yeah.
that's where Barry's at. So we go back to the
Um,
present day then. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and again, it's really interesting that you have Barry working with another scientist figure through these last couple of issues, which I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if this is where they got the idea for Barry having a team in the Flash TV
Yeah,
show.
yeah, I get
Um,
that. Yeah.
but what's also interesting is that we don't like it's again this predates the Flash show by 2 years, so you don't necessarily get the um you don't get the same vibe. Um, and this is the issue where we're really going to start focusing in on Barry making mistakes. Because we go to the next page, back to the present, um,
Hmm.
where we see um, Barry breaking out of the extreme cold, um,
Hmm.
kicking Captain Cold right in the face, um,
We see
and
that
run.
what the ship that they were on is like in the air, held up by these like ice structures, and Iris and Patty are on there. They're sort of just hanging on the side, and then the ice
Patty's
structure
looking
begins,
for Patty once again is looking for Barry, who is mysteriously gone missing.
as you do
Um,
when you're the Flash, and then the ice structure begins to collapse, and we go
and the
back
ship
to.
rips in half.
Yes. And then we flash back once again to this morning. We see what Leonard Snart was up to before this attack happened. He's looking after his
This is where we
sister.
get an explanation of his backstory, basically.
Hmm.
Which
And
I don't know if this is the typical Captain Cold backstory that he has a sister who's ill, and
I'm not as familiar as I would like to be, I admit. This is what I always know. Like this has pretty much become the norm. And I
uh,
really like this backstory here. Like it's so good.
yeah, I mean it's like, and it explained why he wouldn't resort to murder because it's uh, his sister. I think the idea is that she has, yeah, she has a brain tumor, and this doctor can't do anything else but just say he's sorry because it's inoperable. So he's kind of driven to villainy and just an extreme hatred of the Flash, especially post the electromagnetic pulse.
Hmm.
And we'll see why.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, they say why, don't they? Yeah, because it like knocked out a bunch of her medical equipment, and
so now she's just any stability she had, she's dying. Um,
mhm.
and that is just one. It's just a sad. Like it makes him really sympathetic, and I hope he gets used more after this.
Oh, he
Uh,
definitely does. Yeah. I mean, like, I can say the title of the one volume, like Volume 3, is called Rogue's Revolution, and it very much focuses on a lot of this plot here. Also, I don't know if you know who Lisa Snart is in the comics.
I don't.
Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
I
I think
mean
they also
it's
used her. I think they also used her in the Flash TV show. I'm pretty sure.
they might have. I only watched like the first season
Okay,
because
gotcha.
that was after.
I think that's the only one like worth watching, really, isn't it?
I mean, it had the entire show has its fans and people who are still watching to this day.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But season one, like I think I watched the first three seasons when it was airing, and I don't know. I only really liked season one a lot. I mean,
it was.
season two has Tony Todd. Season two has Tony Todd as the main villain, so that's fun.
Ooh. I think I
Yeah,
started season two, but I don't know how far I got because that would have also been what Arrow season four,
yeah.
and that
Right
was
around all
when
like
they really started ramping up the entire Arrowverse, like,
yeah.
and it's
It
just
just
like
it
that.
got fucking ridiculous. Yeah,
It became too much content for someone to try and keep up with because you would have like a show air an episode every day of the week.
yeah,
And
yeah,
because it's American broadcast television, 20 plus episode seasons,
yeah.
um, which is a lot. But yeah, so we see the percentages just slowly creeping up.
Yeah, as
As
Barry uses more of his power
he's
and
becoming more desperate because he's
mhm.
doing anything to save them, and this is kind of a fuck up because it by the end of the page it reaches 81%.
Hmm.
Um,
And then we cut back to 15 minutes ago and see what Barry and Patty were up to before this. And they were out having lunch with Iris and just talking about things and the Flash. And Barry and Patty as a couple gets brought up. And Barry walks
uh,
away because it gets awkward. And
yeah, so
it's just a nice little moment. Yeah.
you get this is the first time where you really get Iris being like, maybe the Flash isn't so bad,
Hmm.
but also she's totally after a story.
Yeah.
And I think the idea is that this is just a restaurant that's on a boat.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a fun idea. But
it's
then we go to what was 5 minutes ago, and we see Snart gearing up for his plot to attack the Flash and at least get Flash's attention. So he rips up this boat restaurant and tosses it into the air with this ice structure and whatever. And then we cut back to now. Once again, the percentage rising. It's now at 84% as Flash continues to use his powers. Um, Once again, and at this point, the ship is ripped in half. Um,
like the
Patty
one
is
half
still,
is thrown into the air, the half that Patty's on, and it crashes down as the energy level reaches 98%, and
and
that's
that
where the issue ends.
yes, taking us into. I mean, it's not even worth saying at this point. Another fantastic cover for issue 7, and an awesome variant done by Dale Keown, who just does a who does a great job with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're all so interesting. Just all the covers. Um, and here's where I'm like, are they actually gonna kill Patty after only 6 issues of her being a character? Um, and we open with kind of a almost the way the narration works. It kind of feels almost tonally whiplash for that first page. It feels kind of like, yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got into this situation.
With the arrow pointing to Patty.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
Um,
But we get a great like horizontal 2-page spread here of like the 9 seconds leading up to where we are now, and a panel for each of those. And I just really like that. Um,
all building to this amazing 2-page spread. Again, still doing the DC Comics proudly presents The Flash, where the Flash is the letters are physically made out of rubble, like
Oh,
the
I
S is a
love that. I love
chain.
that so much.
Uh,
So good.
and we see Barry trying to run super fast to try and save Patty. He's able to grab Patty and grab some other people off of this. Patty says Barry, where I'm like, ooh, is the penny dropping? Because it's been in the air for a while. Uh,
Hmm. But we
I
see
feel like
she's. I mean,
I I
go
feel like
ahead.
she should be smart enough to work it out after just him leaving and then the Flash showing up more than a couple of times.
And
Uh,
also the fact that the Flash is just one of those characters that, quite famously, doesn't really use a separate voice for his alter ego. um,
no,
so
God,
so
could
he's
you
he's just
imagine what that
so
would
he's just saying,
be?
oh yeah, Barry's safely on the other half of the boat, and I got everyone out of the wreckage. And it's just like, okay, sure you did, Barry. Um, but yeah, then this sort of vortex comes ripping through the sky, and and takes the other half of this ship with it. The that part of the ship disappears. Some debris falls down. Barry
Iris
goes
is
over. Oh, go ahead.
Iris is
Sorry.
taken, I think, is the
Mhm.
implication.
Yeah, and Barry goes over to save Leonard Snart from the freezing water. He's very pissed at him and sees, but Leonard like says like he asked Leonard like why he's doing all this to him, and Captain Cold says he says my sister dying because of you, and that sort of like stops Barry in his tracks. He's like it's my fault, like someone that is like was directly affected by the EMP blast and all that. Um,
Which
and
is it's this is where that pathos really comes in of Barry realizing, oh my God, I fucked up really
Yeah,
badly.
yeah.
Um, and I love that it's a villain who shows him how bad he screwed up, but not in
Hmm.
like some twisted evil plan way. It's just
Yeah,
in
yeah, just like
a
that Cold like just really cares about his sister and like just
it's so human, and I love the idea. I love it because like Barry to this point had been wailing on him, like
hmm.
um, but yeah, he decides, okay, let's see what I can do. Um, so he goes back to Dr. Elias's lab and the cosmic treadmill. Um, and what he's going to try to do is um, run really fast to try to break the sound barrier, then the speed of light. Um,
Hmm.
and he has makes Elias promise him that when we're done, deliver a battery cell to the hospital to treat Lisa Snart, which
Yeah,
is such a nice gesture.
yeah. So he goes on this treadmill and he goes into that into that vortex. Meanwhile, in Africa, um,
Suddenly, there
s-
are a bunch of gorillas.
yes. Now you're already familiar with a character named Gorilla Grodd, I assume,
Only
correct?
because of one clip, basically.
Oh no!
It is literally that meme
Wait, no,
clip.
I thought they did Grodd in the first season of the Flash show.
They
Isn't
do. They do. But whenever I think of Grodd, it's that meme
it?
clip.
It's the oh god.
It's the Obama clip. Which like it's terrible. But again, what's also is at this point I'm like, oh, they're setting up another arc because I'm like,
Yes, they
there
are.
was no way that we're gonna do a Gorilla Grodd arc in the last
Yeah,
issue and a
yeah.
half.
It's all set up because Volume 2 is called Guerrilla Warfare. So yeah. Anyway, back in Central City, we see Leonard catching up with his sister, and like Leonard says like everything that he did for her, um and Lisa says, after what you did to us, to me, you should have let me die. And that's that.
It's this haunting ending, which I think
Yeah.
is is great.
Mm.
And I then really like that we take a full page
Full
of
two pages.
yeah, a full 2 pages of Patty going to director Singh. She just needs comfort because
Because she thinks Barry's dead.
yeah, like it's this very, very nice scene.
Yeah.
Um, we also find out, the EMP still hasn't fixed the power hasn't been fixed
Hmm.
to Central and Keystone City. So we're any power is running on presumably emergency generators. Um,
Hmm. We see Sing's place like has just a bunch of candles strewn about it, and
four flutes as well, uh,
mhm.
and we 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 have some. Uh, we have some interesting insight that Singh doesn't really like the Flash as an insult to the police force. Um, but they comfort one another, ending with Patty breaking down and crying because I never told Barry that I loved him.
And just as she says that, the lights in Central City come back on, and we cut over then to Flash within this vortex. Um, and as he begins to explore, he sees his mom. He asks where he is. He goes, "Am I dead?" And someone comes up behind him, says, "Not yet, but if you don't get me out of here, you will be." And that's the end of issue 7. And we go into issue 8, the final issue of this collection. Um, Great variant cover here by Bernard Chang. Just really like that one. It's very nice. But yeah, so we learn where this character comes from. We go to
We
May 12th, 1944.
four. So I was like, at this point, I'm like, oh, we're flashing back again. Okay, this again. Like I said, each issue, like there's such a we're just thrown for so many loops. Um,
Hmm.
that mostly work. But this one we get a flashback to uh, this Air Force pilot in World War II. Uh, his plane, there's some turbulence, and it is struck by lightning. His name is Hines, and the lightning strike makes him disappear mysteriously. Um, and we find out that Barry is inside the Speed Force, and the time is just now. But I like the idea that we are kind of outside of time here.
Well, yeah, because we see like these flashes strewn about them. We see Heinz's past swirling around back there. We see Barry's childhood, him at the zoo. We see a flash of a gorilla there, quite ironically. And again, just great title page. The DC Comics proudly presents the Flash is carved within this rock here that they're on. Just really nice looking. And yeah, so we go on with this. There's a nice little fight here between Barry and Heinz, and
Hines knows who Barry is, um,
mhm,
and it's like you are going to get me back home, or if I'm going to kill you. So they continue to fight, and the fighting is just a great sequence in general.
mhm,
Um, but then when they get a minute to talk, we actually get some really fun trippy layout, like this
mhm.
2-page spread of this winding path. Um,
Yeah, and they like walk on the side of this mountain and this rock face and like walk upside down and around and as they're just talking about what this place is and it's just really well drawn. It's fascinating to look at.
yes. We get the understanding that this is the Speed Force. This is where Barry gets his powers, and Barry
Hmm.
has the ability to reach out to the pieces of the past and the future, and that's how he could get him home.
Hmm.
Um,
And we learned that Elias's hypothesis is wrong in every way possible. In fact, it's the opposite. If Barry doesn't run enough, that is what's causing these vortexes and wormholes that are throwing things out of time.
yeah, and the idea is that because that's where we get the whole idea that Barry needs to just keep moving forward,
Hmm.
to keep the timeline in check.
Yeah,
Um, and that the idea is that he's the release valve, um,
yeah.
which is a cool idea. I wish it was. I hope it gets explored further.
It will get explored
Yeah,
further. Yeah.
because this is a great idea, but it's being introduced in the last issue of a collection, so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't get as much time to explore it as you might want. But that's for once, that's not a negative because this is obviously an ongoing and
Mhm.
it better be explored. But we then cut to Central City Music Hall, um, where the fallen cops are having a memorial. Um, inc- included among the dead is Barry. Um, we have this conductor character, um, Hartley Rathaway, who he looks like a villain, like he's going to be a
um,
villain.
I mean, he is like since you clearly didn't recognize the name, I won't say anything. But Hartley Rathway is a DC character that
He's a
existed
DC
before this.
character. Is he
Yeah.
the Music Meister? Because like,
No, 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 no,
okay, so I'm like,
no.
I know they eventually didn't they bring the Music Meister from Batman the Brave and the Bold into the DC universe
They did,
at
yes, yeah.
at
They,
some
they, they
point.
did that. They did it in the CW show, The Flash, horribly. And then more recently, they did the Music Meister in the Harley Quinn show. Um, and
Uh,
he's been using like very like small appearances here and there in the comics. I know he was in the most recent Pride anthology and things like that. So
so
he
yeah, so
appears every now and
he
then. But no, that's not him. This is a different character.
okay.
I won't say anything beyond that because I believe he appears later on in this run. So
But yeah, we get introductions. Again, this feels more feels more set up for what's coming later. Just because
yeah. So
that's
we get more of that here. We catch up with Barry and Hines. We see some more flashes of the past, present, and future, and all that. We see glimpses of Gorilla City and all that. We see some more gorillas and Grodd and all that. Um,
and we
but
find out
yes,
that Hines just wants to go home.
but Barry
Um,
can only really take him to the present, and that is
and
not
we
what
also find
Alex
out that it's
wants.
accidentally Hines' fault for the EMP and everything. That he
Mhm.
accidentally was responsible for pinballing that energy, trying to get back to his own time.
Yeah. When did we start calling Heinz Turbine?
Uh, I think that was his call sign.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I probably just didn't pay attention to that. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So Heinz gets pissed at Barry for this. He starts to attack him. We get a brief fight here between the two of them, and they sort of break through the Speed Force. So much so that one of Flash's earpieces breaks off and flies through time and catches up with Iris and on the other side of the Speed Force. And
I
that's where
think
we
in the
leave
wreck
off.
of the ship that was destroyed,
Yeah, and that's where
the
we leave off Barry's plot for this collection, because the last couple pages of this are just a setup for the next volume. We get Grodd being honored as a warrior, and then Grodd kills his father, and he is now King Grodd, and that's where this ends. Oh, as Barry falls through behind him and
behind
lands there
him,
next to Grodd. So
which
that's
as an ending, it's very check out the next volume.
yeah, oh,
Uh,
definitely,
I'm almost
definitely.
disappointed that they didn't include like a next time caption in the trade.
Yeah,
Like
that
I'm
makes
sure the
sense.
individual issue has it, but like
Mhm.
this is
Well,
crying out for a next time.
I mean, I, they see there are times when I can tell you've never read an individual issue of a comic because they don't really like come with like previews of the next issue. Like,
No, but like just like a tagline, like saying like next time, whatever. Because I know like the Sandman
yeah,
Omnis.
even then they don't do that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does make me want to read Volume Two, um,
Yeah,
which I'm sure we will. Also,
we most definitely will.
I love that Barry falling is just like in the background,
Oh yeah, it's just a
and
small part. Like I almost forgot to mention it there at the end just now.
it's
Because
almost humorous because like Grodd is having this big dramatic moment.
it's like, oh yeah, and also Barry falls through and he's made it out of the Speed Force.
Um, so yeah, so that that was
That was the Flash move forward. Did we like it?
um yes, but also it's got some issues.
I get
Like
that. It's got
like
eight of them to be exact.
it's got eight of them, yeah. Um like um one, I love the I loved I loved a lot of things on their own, but as a cohesive whole, it didn't entirely work, especially issue five. Issue five is the big contender of
Yeah, it does feel like it's missing bits here and
it's like it's
there.
missing something. Like it just it feels unresolved.
Hmm.
Um,
But I
I
really do love the little two-part Captain Cold story there towards the end. Like I
yeah, I
really love
mean,
those two issues.
those are really good. I'd even say issue 8 is really good as this nice
Yeah.
sort of button to this whole idea of let's explore what the Speed Force is because the audience is trying to learn with Barry, which I think is a very good way, especially for what the New 52 is just trying to do in general. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and
of
that is to be a jumping on point for new readers, whether that be to continue what you're doing but do it in a new and presentable way, or take it to a more back to basics approach like this,
yeah,
and really get the readers to learn along with these characters, and I really do appreciate this approach, you know.
yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah.
obviously the Grodd stuff is all set up, but it's not bad setup by
Oh
any
no,
means,
mm-mm.
and
No, not at all.
it doesn't intrude on the action. I never felt like oh we're doing setup for future stuff again.
Yeah, no, because that's
Uh,
just how a comic works. Like, these aren't written with the express intent of being like, oh, this would make a nice 6-issue trade, wouldn't it? Like, no,
yes,
we're telling an ongoing series. Let's tell an ongoing series.
yeah,
Um,
but I feel like there could be examples of setup for further issues that do interfere, especially if say if the setup is more interesting than what's going on in the issue itself.
yeah, or
Uh,
like say like like those like 1 or 2 pages of Grodd setup were in issue 5, and it's actively taking away from the stuff that we think is missing from issue 5. Like
yeah,
that could be a
that could be
problem,
a
you know?
big issue.
Yeah, where you're using
I,
page space on something completely different, but they
and
didn't do that here. So there were clearly just some issues with issue 5.
I love how
Um,
just unabashedly like sci-fi this is too.
oh, at certain times, yeah, definitely.
Our first villain is a clone. I wish we got more of the clones. Like there are things about it that I love individually, but I just don't think it comes together as cohesively as it could. Um, especially, and a lot of that is just down to that issue 5 problem. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
it didn't flow nicely because like the stuff with Iron Heights and Captain Cold early on, like starting in issue 2, like it blends nicely. It adds to the narrative. Issue 4 is like right, we're getting to a climax. Issue 5 then rushes that climax
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just rushes.
But overall, like it is a really solid collection. Like I
Yes,
really do
yes.
like it on the whole.
Definitely,
Um, yeah,
definitely excited to see more. Um,
yeah. Which we
and
will get to
I hope
eventually. And
that
that's
because now this team has found their footing, they have 8 issues, they can just springboard off of that into greater heights.
yeah,
Uh,
I would say they certainly do. So
yes. Also,
yeah,
take some inspiration from this for Flash adapted material because there isn't a lot of Flash adapted material. Like
seriously, like not even like animated films. Like there's
yeah, like
fucking nothing.
there's Flashpoint.
Yeah,
Um,
it's always Flashpoint.
And I mean, okay, so you have the one episode of Superman the animated series uh, that adapts a classic like Silver Age Flash comic, uh,
Mhm.
which
Scott
is
Weather Wizard,
yeah, which is
who not a
great.
lot of people use.
But
Um,
like do something interesting with Flash, especially for animation, because animation you can go abstract with animation and do
yeah,
interesting things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I guess that about does it for this Flash discussion. It was
Yes.
fun, and also that finishes off our first little 2 block Flash arc. Next time we are technically starting a Bat block, though not on a like not on a Bat specific thing, if that makes sense. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so we're gonna talk. I'm gonna reveal to you what the next episode is now. But I
Before we do that,
gotta know. I
just
gotta
one,
know what you.
just a quick final thing for a move forward.
Okay.
Definitely seek it out. Luckily, the trades are still in print. I know there's also an Omni you can get for all the Manifold Bigelow New 52 run.
Yep. And
Uh,
also the trades are like dirt cheap. So
yes, because
yeah.
they're nice and cheap. Uh, I like it's I kind of wish maybe this formed more of the basis for the Flash TV show. It might have worked better, um, especially because I dropped off after one season because it didn't keep my attention. But at that point, now we can move into the discussion of what's
Yes.
next.
So So you know that the next 29 through 40 29 through 31 is an official bat block. 28 is technically part of that block, but not quite. So I got to know what you think episode 28 is.
So, okay. Still, the guests are a little graspy at straws. Um, Initially, I was going to guess Dark Knight's Metal just because I'm like, that's out there and insane, and Batman's a part of that. Like,
Okay.
I don't know. But then I remembered that you had said, it's not like an official Batman thing. So I was like, well, it could be Bat Family, but I feel like Bat Family would get a block of more than just one episode.
Okay.
So, but then this morning, I remembered how much you love one, Tom Taylor, and two, Injustice. So are we maybe starting Injustice?
We are not.
Okay,
So
then I don't know.
okay, so you're giving up your guesses.
I'm giving up. Yeah.
I'm gonna
What?
say you're gonna kick yourself in the ass because when you hear it, you're gonna think, okay, that's a little weird, but also makes perfect sense given what we've covered in the past.
Okay.
So I wish you hadn't glossed over the Bat Family idea.
Uh,
So so
Okay.
okay, I want you to think really hard about things we've covered in the past and how it could directly relate to a Bat Family title.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh. Is it? Oh, that's perfect. Is it Catwoman When in Rome? Because that would
Yes,
be
it is.
perfect.
Yes, it
How
is
the hell
Catwoman
did
When
I
in
not
Rome.
come across?
I don't know how you didn't think of that at all in your thought process here, Jake.
I don't.
Because usually you're really good with thinking of like how I like plan things out, but like I don't know
No.
how, I don't know how you arrived at Injustice.
I was like, I was trying to think like, okay, it's gonna be
I mean,
something
we'll
crazy.
totally do it justice someday because I love Injustice, but like, I mean, not right now. Yeah. uh,
Okay,
so
that.
yeah, so next time on Fresh Face Comics, we're talking about Catwoman When in Rome by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, officially sort of finishing off the Long Halloween Dark Victory saga.
Yeah.
With a
I'd
little
like to do that Haunted Night prequel someday.
that we will also do someday. So yeah,
That's
we'll cover
yeah.
Haunted Night someday.
And luckily, Catwoman When in Rome is finally back in print. Uh,
Yes, it's just really hard to find on Amazon for some reason.
yeah, it is. It is in a. It's a funny story because I knew it was out of print when I found the deluxe edition being released and being in print. Joey knows this. I snapped that up because I'm like,
That is true. Yeah.
I want a physical copy of this because it's Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. So, ooh, that's
It's exciting. It's really exciting. I like it's a really underrated Jeff Loeb book that like not a lot of people talk about, but I really, really like it. So
and it's
yeah.
perfect to start off
Yeah.
year two. So
Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, especially like as a long Halloween sort of tie-in thing. That'll be fun. So yeah, great way to start off year two. So yeah, join us next time when we read that. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at Jomo with 3 underscores. He is at Newt5996. I will leave those linked down in the description. You can check us out there. We post all kind of comic takes and also especially if you're watching this, hang on. Let me make sure I have my dates right. I'm pretty sure I do. This comes out on the 24th, I believe.
yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
So as of 2 days ago, we put out an introduction video to a new series that we're starting on the channel, officially coming out weekly on Saturdays. Me and my brother Jacob are working on that, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in sci-fi things. So yeah, I guess
Yes.
that
So
about
so go over to the Blood Zone at Studios YouTube and subscribe if you are listening on your preferred
oh, also
podcast
last
platform.
yes, be sure
Please.
to rate and subscribe wherever you're listening to us. That means
Or
a lot. Also, last Monday, we released our second Sandman comic dub scene. I did another scene with Taya as Dream and Death, and we got our friend Brian in on it, and it was great fun. Also, if you haven't checked it out already, the Daredevil scene that we did a couple weeks back, that was great fun as well. Brian stars as Matt Murdock in that, so it was just a really good time.
yes.
And
Shall we also announce what's coming next Monday?
yeah, yeah, we can say what it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
so
because it's
to celebrate 1 year of Fresh Face Comics, Joey's going to have me sitting down and filling out a DC here, our Fresh Face Comics Heroes tier maker.
Yes.
Which in something that I hope becomes a tradition in between the years as we add more heroes.
Yeah, specifically with heroes that we've covered within these first 27 episodes, and covered enough that like Jacob has a decent opinion on all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
So
So we're not gonna get
um,
like, I'm trying to think of a character who just showed up. Element Girl from Flashpoint.
yeah, yeah. So as I have it here's the list. Here are all the heroes that we're including in the tier list. So Jacob will be ranking Bruce Wayne, Carrie Kelly, Clark Kent, Connor Kent, John Henry Irons, Dick Grayson, Diana Prince, Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, Arthur Curry, Victor Stone, Mira, Raven, Starfire, Garfield Logan, Donna Troy, Wally West, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Kilowog, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Helena Bertinelli, Selena Kyle, and Oliver Queen. So that is the list, and we'll be talking about all of them 1 week from today, but presumably a little bit further for us as of recording. So,
Yes.
yeah. All right, I guess that about does it.
Yes,
Thank
it
you all
does.
so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.